Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to pick up Rita Skeeter's scoop. This is after Hermione has her blow up with Rita Skeeter in Hogsmeade at the Three Broomsticks. Three Broomsticks. And she kind of warns, Rita Skeeter warns her about, Hermione doesn't know what she's talking about regarding Ludo Bagman and other stuff. They go back to Hogsmeade, they go back to Hogwarts, and they go to talk to Hagrid. And when they get there, this is pages 452 and following. When they get there, they knock on the door, and Dumbledore's there. Okay? Dumbledore, welcomes them in to Hagrid's Hagrid's home, or Hagrid's Hame, whichever one you want to use. And Dumbledore says, 453, about a third of the way down, Hermione, Harry, and Ron still seem to want to know you, judging by the way they were attempting to break down the door. Harry, of course we do. You don't think anything that Skeeter cow... sorry, Professor. Dumbledore, I've temporarily gone deaf. Haven't any idea what you said. Why that little detail? He calls her a cow. Sorry, Professor. And Dumbledore is like, what did you say? I didn't hear that. This is another aspect of Rowling, I think, I could be entirely wrong, trying to instill some sense of proper behavior or manners. Okay? Harry shouldn't call Rita Skeeter a cow. It's not nice. It's inappropriate. And Dumbledore, though, in this instance is like, you have my blessing to do that. Right? So, Harry says, how can you, Hagrid, think we'd care what she says? Why does he say that? Everybody else seems to. Dumbledore's been getting letters about, Hagrid and such. And Dumbledore goes on. Living proof of what I've been telling you, Hagrid. I've shown you. So he's gotten letters supporting Hagrid. He's gotten letters against Hagrid. I've shown you the letters from the countless parents who remember you from their own days here, telling me in no uncertain terms that if I sacked you, they would have something to say about it. Okay? Hagrid, not all of them. That is, not all of the letters have been positive. What is this telling us about Hagrid? Okay, back up for a second. How old is Hagrid? 63. Let's figure out the math. So in book 2, Chamber of Secrets, we hear about an event that happened 50 years prior. In that event that happened 50 years prior, how old was Hagrid? Third year, 11, 12, 13. Book 2, he's 63. Okay, so 2 more years have gone by. So now he's 65. How old is Voldemort? Voldemort was a 5th year. Okay, so Voldy is 67, right? Now, so, Dumbledore, 454. Really, Hagrid, if you were holding out for universal popularity, I'm afraid you'll be in this cabin for a very long time. Okay? He says, not a week has passed since I became headmaster of this school when I haven't had at least one owl complaining about the way I run it. Dumbledore has been headmaster of that school for, at this point, we don't have an exact number, but it's probably 45 to 55 years. Dumbledore is a professor at the school when Tom Riddle was there as a student. he was a headmaster, we're going to find out, shortly after Tom Riddle left. We don't know exactly how much time. Been there a long time is his point. Okay? He says, what should I do? Barricade myself in my study, refuse to talk to anybody? Yeah, you're not half giant, Hagrid says. What does that mean? I don't mean literally. Obviously, literally, it means he's half giant. Figuratively, metaphorically, what does it mean? Think of, again, Chamber of Secrets. Flourish and blots. Okay? Arthur Weasley, Lucius Malfoy. Hammer and tongs. They go at it. What does Hagrid say immediately after that blow-up? What does he say about the Malfoys in particular?
Bad blood.
Bad blood. They're not worth it, Arthur. What's bad blood mean? Can you change your blood? No, you can't. What is meant by that idea of bad blood? This person will never be good. This person can never change. Meaning, none of the Malfoys can ever change. What's Hagrid mean by that? Bad blood. Hagrid's saying he is bad blood because of this half-giant thing. Half-giant, half-human. In other words, mixed. What does Malfoy call Hermione? Mudblood. Why? Because she descends from two non-magical parents. What did Tom Riddle call Harry in the chamber? Half-blood. Why? Because he said that's one of the things that connects you and me. We're both half-bloods. Is Harry a half-blood? No. Literally speaking, no, he is not. His father's I almost said witch. Maybe today he would be. His father's a wizard. His mother's a witch. Fully magical. His father's parents, from all we know, fully magical. His mother's were not. So, if we're gonna go down this racial nonsense, because that's what it is, right? What is Harry? Literally speaking, if anything, he'd be what? Quarter blood, eighth blood. Yeah. You get to where, people start using Ancestry.com and stuff to try to figure out, well, how much, and part of my family does this, how much Irish am I? How much Jew am I? How much whatever? What the frick doesn't matter? That's Rowling's point. This is utter nonsense. Why? And why is it brought up? Because of the notion of pure blood, racial purity. Hitler was part Jew. And yet he advocated for the Dolph Lundgrens of the world, Tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, chiseled Aryan features, and he had none of that in his own personal background, okay? So, Harry takes Hagrid's half-giant notion and says, Hagrid, look at what I've got for relatives. Look at the Dursleys. What does he mean? Is he talking about their blood? Maybe in one sense, but not really. How related is Harry to the Dursleys? Vernon? None. None. No blood relation. Petunia? She's his aunt, however you want to pronounce the word. Dudley, cousin, half, kind of, you know. Look at the Dursleys. Dumbledore, excellent point. My own brother Aberforth, prosecuted for practicing. And I really wonder what J.K. Rowling meant by this. Inappropriate charms on a goat, you know. Got a little weird there, all right? Hermione, come back and teach. Now, are they doing that because Hagrid is such a fantastic teacher of care of magical creatures? Not really. Why are they doing it?
Because they care about it.
They care about him. Hagrid is a friend. They're loyal to him. Those two virtues that we heard Hermione mention at the end of book 1. Hagrid gulps, tears. Dumbledore leaves, says, I'm not accepting your resignation. Be back in class. Okay? So, 455 at the top. Hagrid says, he's right. That is Dumbledore. You all are right. I've been stupid. Never shown you a picture, my old dad, have I? And so he pulls out a picture. And we see Hagrid, a good 7 or 8 feet tall, judging by the apple tree beside him. And what? Where's his dad?
On his shoulders.
On his shoulders. Taken just after I got into Hogwarts. Now, meaning he just turned probably 11. If half giants / giants have the same growth periods as humans, and half giants or giants grow exponentially more than humans since they're taller, and he's already 7 or 8 feet at 11 years old. By the time he reaches his full growth potential, 18, 19, how tall is Hagrid? We're never told how tall Hagrid is, right? All we are told, and it could be exaggeration, his hands are the size of dustbin lids. That probably means like 55-gallon, like trash can lids. That's like this big. So Hagrid's probably a good 14, 15 feet tall. We're going to meet a half-brother later on who's even taller, all right? So, 455. Dumbledore was the one who stuck up for me after Dad went. That is, after his father died. Got me the gamekeeper job. What is this telling us? After Hagrid got kicked out of Hogwarts, 3rd year, the 50 years prior to the Chamber of Secrets, he went back and lived home with his dad. His father died. Dumbledore then forgot, I'm not literally, said Hogwarts stuff isn't important, and went out and reached out to Hagrid and the Ministry of Magic to secure a place for Hagrid at Hogwarts. Why? Trusts people, he does. Gives them second chances. What did we see in that chapter? Well, going home, or the Fellowship disbands, whatever it is, like the third to the last chapter of Lord of the Rings, and then the scouring of the Shire. We see people run into Saruman more than one time. And what do they all do? The last interaction between Saruman and somebody else, Frodo, is what? It's another second chance. Why? Why does Tolkien do that? We're going to see Rowling do it. It's the problem I have with the final film. Huge problem. Okay? Tolkien thinks no one is beyond the possibility for change, for turning to the good, in other words. Rowling thinks the same. Gives them second chances. That's what sets him apart from other heads. See? He'll accept anyone at Hogwarts. How do we know? Leave Hagrid aside. Who else did he accept at Hogwarts? Book 3. Lupin. What was Lupin when he was accepted? He was already a werewolf. You gotta be out there a little bit on thin ice, doing that. It'd be like, MTSU knowing somebody was a serial killer. And go ahead, come on in, put them in with the rest of the classes. As long as what? As long as they've got the talent. That is, as long as they're magical. If Hagrid hadn't been magical, he wouldn't have been accepted in. If Lupin hadn't been magical, he wouldn't have been accepted. Those people can turn out okay, even if their families weren't, well, all that respectable. Why doesn't Hagrid think this in Chamber of Secrets? Why doesn't he say, Arthur, you should try to reason with the Malfoys. Maybe we can, to use language we're going to hear in book 7, maybe we can try and convert them to our side. I think it's because, 1, he's not thinking then. 2, there's been a commotion. Tempers are high, emotions are high. But some don't understand that. Some don't understand what? That people can change. We can turn to the end of this novel. Everything else between here and there, kind of unimportant. Well, not quite, but there's some who'd always hold it against you. There's some who'd pretend they just had big bones. Who's he talking about? Madame Maxime. The date didn't go that well, in other words. Never be ashamed, my old dad used to say. There's some who hold it against you, but they're not worth bothering with, and he was right. I've been an idiot. I think I've written up here before and mentioned. Wrong letter. Oh, man. This whiteboard is killing me. I can't see it. Oracle of Delphi, ancient Greece, stone out in front, had inscribed, know thyself. It's called Delphic wisdom. It's one of the most important ideas in all of Western intellectual history. Hagrid now has come to this realization of who he really is. And who is he really? He's good. He's not, because he's half giant, half human, he's not some kind of freak. He's not lesser than anybody else. You know, Harry, when I first met you, you reminded me a bit of me. Why? 1 foot in the magical world, after Harry gets told about it, and 1 foot back in the muggle world. All throughout the books, Harry's torn between these kind of two sides. Mom and Dad gone, feeling like you wouldn't fit into Hogwarts. Remember? Not sure you're really up to it. And now look at you, Harry. School champion. You know what I'd love, Harry? I'd love for you to win. Why? To show you don't have to be pure blood. You don't have to be ashamed of what you are. It'd show him, Harry, the one who's got it, Dumbledore's the one who got it right, letting anyone in as long as they can do magic. And then he asked Harry about the egg. And Harry's like, next topic, okay? The egg in the eye. Gonna skip a bunch. So Harry takes the egg, he goes up to the prefect's bathroom, he goes under the water. There's Moaning Myrtle, kind of weird. Harry's naked and she's whatever. She's a ghost, but still kind of weird. He hears the clue. What does the clue say? 463. Come seek us where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground. Cool. While you're searching, ponder this. We've taken what you'll sorely miss. An hour long, excuse me, an hour long you'll have to look and to recover what we took. But past an hour, the prospect's black. too late, it's gone. It won't come back. Okay? What is it? I'm going to jump ahead. What's going to be taken that Harry will miss?
Ron.
Really? What happened between Harry's name coming out of the goblet and the first task? What happened between Harry and Ron? Put it that way. Who turned? Ron. Ron turned his back on Harry. He thought Harry was lying to him. Okay? What brought Ron back? He watched that task and he thought, he could be killed. The possibility of losing that friendship is what brings Ron back. Okay? Notice that kind of framework is almost turned upside down with this one. This time, it's the thought of losing Ron that causes Harry to kind of not leave Ron, but, risk himself and such. Okay? So, go. Harry leaves the bathroom. He puts on his invisibility cloak, and he's got the Marauder's map with him, and he sees on it, page 466 at the bottom, Bartimius Crouch in Snape's office. What's Bartimius Crouch doing here? Okay. Drops the egg and stuff. He gets caught by Snape and Mad Eye. Snape takes the Marauder's map from him. And Moody shows up. Moody asks what Snape's doing, 472. Snape says, Dumbledore happens to trust me. What was Hagrid just talking about? Dumbledore trusts people. He gives them a second chance. Okay? And he says, of course he trusts you. Why? He's a trusting person. That's going to be an important idea, especially when we get to the later part of the chapter. Okay? So, let's see here. Harry mentions Crouch to Mad Eye. Mad Eye asks if he could borrow the map. Harry explains what the map does. Chapter 26, second task. We're going to skip most of. Hold on. Skip all that. Harry goes down into the lake. He's the first one to arrive at the hostages. He sees Ron, he sees Gabrielle, and he sees Hermione, thank you. But he's the last one to go back. Why?
Because he wants to save all of them.
He wants to save all of them. He goes back up and talking with Ron and Hermione, 503. Ron, what'd you bring her for? Fleur didn't show up. Didn't turn up. I couldn't leave her. Harry, you brat, says Ron. You didn't take that song thing seriously, did you? Dumbledore wouldn't have let any of us drown. The song said, what did the song say? Did the song say you have an hour or they die? No, it didn't. It was only to make sure you got back inside the time limit. I hope you didn't waste time down there acting the hero. It's the first time this kind of language has actually been used to describe Harry. Acting the hero. Harry felt both stupid and annoyed. Stupid, why? For taking the song seriously. Annoyed? I think there could be a couple of reasons. One, Ron calling him stupid for acting like a hero. Why else? He could have won. Okay? It was all very well for Ron. He'd been asleep. He didn't see what was going on. So, the judges determined the points. 5:05. Dumbledore talks to the chief of the Mer people, and we get the points awarded on 5:06, 5:07. Fleur demonstrated excellent use of the bubblehead charm, but she didn't achieve her hostage. So she gets what?
20 pounds.
Which is how many of the total possible?
Half.
She put her name on the exam. That's what she did. And so she gets 50 points. When I do objective exams, if you get below, I think on my grading scale, 60 is an F, 55 is an F. And I've had this happen before. I think I had one student, not in this class, some other class, got like a 4 out of 100. Okay? I put 55 in the grade book for the simple reason it's a lot easier to dig out a hole of only 55 points than it is of 4 points. Okay? So, Fleur, I deserve 0. She's true, she's right. What else? Cedric also used a bubblehead charm. He was the first to return with his hostage, but outside the hour. He gets 47 points. Ooh, that's pretty close. Okay? Crumb used an incomplete form of transfiguration, turned his head into a shark, I think. He gets 40 points. Harry used gillyweed to great effect, Bagman says. He returned last, well outside the time limit of an hour. However, the Mer Chieftainess informs us that Mr. Potter was first to reach the hostages, and that the delay in his return was due to his determination to return all hostages to safety, not merely his own. Most of the judges, Bagman says, and gives Karkaroff a nasty look, feel that this shows moral fiber and merits full marks. Who are most of the judges? There's only 4 judges, right? Bagman, Crouch,
Maxime, and Dumbledore.
and Karkaroff. So there's 5. Okay?
Karkaroff is the one who doesn't.
Karkaroff clearly doesn't. Most could be 3 of the 5. So maybe Madame Maxime doesn't give the 50. I think she does. I think only Karkaroff is the one who doesn't. Okay? Feel that this moral merits shows moral fiber, merits full remarks. So Harry gets 45 points. All right? So now how do they stand going into the third task? Who's at the bottom? Fleur. Who's next?
Karkaroff.
Crumb.
Crumb, sorry.
So Cedric and Harry are at the top. So going into the final task, Hogwarts is way ahead, so to speak. Okay? Chapter 27. Padfoot returns. We have another scoop. Harry Potter's Secret Heartache. We're not going to read it. Okay? So they go off to Hogsmeade. Just before they do, Harry's in potions, and Snape comes up to him. Snape still hates Harry. 5:17, and he holds a little vial. He says, "Do you know what this is, Potter?" "No, sir." "It is Veritas Serum." Truth Serum. Veritas, truth. Use of this potion is controlled by very strict ministry guidelines. But unless you watch your step, you might just find that my hand slips right over your evening pumpkin juice. And then we'll find out whether you've been in my office or not. Does Harry tell Snape that Bartemius Crouch has been in his office? Why not? Okay, so we overhear Snape and I'm not going to keep opening the door, so come in on time or don't come. It's the end of the semester. It's crazy. So they meet Sirius at this cave, right? And we're told they give him food and such. Ron talks about Bartimaeus Crouch and Percy's adoration of him. 524 and 525. They've talked about Ludo Bagman wanting to help Harry and such. And start talking about Winky. 525, middle of the page. Ron's talking about Hermione. She's obsessed with house elves. Sirius holds up a hand to shut him up. When the dark mark had been conjured and the elf had been discovered holding Harry's wand, what did Crouch do? Harry's, we looked in the bushes. Wasn't anybody else there? Of course, he'd want to pin it on anyone but his own elf. And then he sacked her, right? Hermione, yes, he sacked her just for Ron, give it a rest. Sirius, she's got the measure of Crouch better than you have, Ron. And then he gives this little gnomic, sorry, I'm using terminology I have not used in here, which means proverbial or wisdom advice. If you want to know what a man's like, take a good look at how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. So, a couple of examples. Snape. How's he treat his inferiors? Like inferiors. Lucius Malfoy. Like their inferiors. Dumbledore. Like their equals. McGonagall. With respect. Okay? Even though she's, one of the greatest teachers at Hogwarts and such. Sirius. We're going to see a lot more in book 5. James. From what we've seen and or heard. Does he treat them well? What does he consider Snape?
Inferior, probably.
He doesn't treat him well. I mean, they hated each other. Okay? So, all these absences of Barty Crouches. He goes to the trouble of making sure his house elf saves him a seat at the Quidditch World Cup. What's he doing? He's talking aloud, reasoning. He's trying to work through what's going on with Barty Crouch. But he doesn't show up. He saves a seat, but doesn't show up. Why not? He works hard to reinstate the Triwizard Tournament. That is, this was Barty Crouch's idea. This wasn't Fudge's. It wasn't the 3 heads of schools. And then he stopped showing up for that. That's not like Crouch. Harry, did you know him? Sirius's face darkens. That probably means he gets this grimace. Oh, I know him all right. He sent me to Azkaban without a trial. What does our Bill of Rights guarantee you? And the Bill of Rights, fair trial. And the Bill of Rights is based on an earlier document called Magna Carta, written in 1215. Okay? And that said what? That forced the king to offer his barons, his nobles, a fair trial, a jury by their peers. So when the Constitution says we get to have a right to a jury trial by our peers, if we take Magna Carta's example, what does that mean? It means people like us. That doesn't mean I need to be tried by Hollywood celebrities or members of Congress. Why? They aren't my peers. My peers would probably be other professors, other people of the same socioeconomic class. if I were poor and living under a bridge, who would my peers be? Other people in those same circumstances. Okay? So, he gets sent without a trial. What's the purpose of a trial? It is intentionally, oh, the word just left my mind, confrontational, adversarial, between a prosecutor and a defense attorney. Why? Because it's thought that in the hard fighting of words, truth will be determined, truth will be found. Ron and Hermione. What? Harry, you kidding? No, I'm not. He used to be head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. What is he now? Head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. He used to be the Attorney General, essentially, of the British wizarding world, and now he's head of the International Olympics Committee for the British wizarding world. Huge fall. He was tipped to be next Minister of Magic. Great wizard, Barty Crouch. Powerfully magical and power hungry. What does it mean when you're hungry? You've had a bite of something. What do you want? More. Power hungry. More. Never a Voldemort supporter. Notice he's making that clear. No, Barty Crouch was always very outspoken against the dark side. But, a lot of people who are against the dark side, well, you wouldn't understand. You're too young. I think that's like the third or fourth time we've heard it. Ron, it's what my dad said. Try us. Why don't you? A grin flashed across Sirius's thin face. Why? What does that grin mean? What does Sirius see when he looks at Harry, Ron, and Hermione?
He sees himself, James, Lupin.
He sees the Marauders. And he's like, all right, kid, you think you're ready for this? Fine. Imagine Voldemort's powerful now. Notice, not imagine you know who's powerful now. Who are the only other characters who use Voldemort's name? Dumbledore and Harry. You don't know who his supporters are. Why not? Because there's the Imperius Curse. You don't know who's working for him and who isn't. You know he can control people so that they can do terrible things without being able to stop themselves. You're scared for yourself, your family, your friends. Every week, news comes of more deaths, more disappearances, more torturing. Ministry of Magic's in disarray. They don't know what to do. They're trying to keep everything hidden from the Muggles. But meanwhile, Muggles are dying too. Notice where the deaths start. Within the wizarding world. And then what happens? As Voldemort gets more and more powerful, those deaths bleed over into the non-magical world. So these things that begin within the magical world, what I had written up over here one day is the Muggle world, the world of matter, the world of stuff we can see. Okay? Sorry, rephrase that. In the wizarding world, the world not of matter, not of stuff we can see, of the spirit, so to speak, bleeds into this world. Muggles are dying too. Terror everywhere. Panic, confusion. That's how it used to be. Do we have an experience of that in our world? Definitely in Europe. Hitler's rise to power. Okay? Terrorism? Kind of. Imagine if there were like many MINI 9/11s throughout the United States over the last 24 years. Times like that bring out the best in some people and the worst in others. Crouch's principles might have been good in the beginning. He rose quickly through the ministry. He started ordering very harsh measures against Voldemort's supporters. Orders were given new powers, such as powers to kill. Okay? It would be like, after 9/11, the federal government gave authority to local cops and such. If you see someone who you suspect to be a terrorist, shoot them. We'll figure out what's the truth later on. Okay? Didn't happen. And I wasn't the only one who was handed straight to the Dementors without trial. Crouch fought violence with violence. Authorized the use of the unforgivable curses. How unforgivable are they if one man can say, now they're forgivable? He had his supporters, right? Imagine a 9/11 happened today. Imagine, for the moment, we knew who was behind it. Because after all, there are a lot of people, a lot of groups around the world who are real happy with the United States right now. Russia, Ukraine, Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, etc. Gaza, China, lots of folks. Imagine we had one of those events and we knew who was behind it. What would an awful lot of Americans be saying? Just level them. Take them out. There are a lot of witches and wizards clamoring for him to take over as Minister of Magic. When Voldemort disappeared, nice little euphemism, it looked like only a matter of time until Crouch got the top job. But then something unfortunate happened. His son was arrested as a Death Eater. So, what are we being told? What kind of family did Barty Crouch Jr., we're going to find out that that's his name, come from? Not this, not this, not this. This. And yet the son was this is, I think, one place where we can accurately use this term that is bandied around all too much in our world today, a Nazi sympathizer. Voldemort's ideology is really close to Socialist Workers' Party, German Nazis. Okay? Hermione, Crouch's son was caught? Yep. He says. They keep talking. Harry. Okay, so notice he said his son was caught with a group of Death Eaters. How can that be construed? How can that be interpreted?
Guilty by association.
Guilt by association. Just because you're with that group doesn't mean, by fact, ipso facto, you are guilty. Harry asked the all-important question. Was he a Death Eater? No idea. Okay? Caught in the company of them. Might have been in the wrong place, the wrong time. Hermione, did he try and get his son off? And that's where Hermione shows she's not a good judge of character. No. Why? The very fact that he had brought dishonor to the family name was enough. Crouch's fatherly affection stretched just far enough to give his son a trial. Not much more than an excuse for Crouch to show how much he hated the boy. Sent him to Azkaban. Harry, he gave his own son to the Dementors? Yep. And then Sirius tells us, I saw them bring him in. And he said, within a day, he went silent. They shrieked for a while, then. Harry, so he's still there? No, he died. Why? Because what do the Dementors do? They don't only suck all joy out of you, eventually you'll die. Okay? So, 529, bottom of the page. Once the boy had died, that is, once the son had died, people started feeling a bit more sympathetic toward the son. Started asking how a nice young lad from a good family had gone so badly astray. What did Hagrid say when he's talking to Harry, Ron, and Hermione after Dumbledore left his home? Dumbledore knows you don't have to come from the best family in order to become good. You can change. The conclusion was that his father had never cared much for him. Is that it? Does Barty Crouch Jr., assuming this is correct, become a Death Eater because his father didn't show him enough love in his young life? We don't know. My opinion, I think Rowling is throwing some shade on that idea. I think Rowling is suggesting, people don't just become bad, maybe because they don't have enough love in their life, or they aren't loved enough as a child. There is also this thing called choice. Some people choose to be bad, in other words. Okay? So, they keep talking, 5:30, and they talk about Snape. Bottom of 5:30, Harry says to Sirius, "So you think Snape could be up to something? Hermione, I don't care what you say. Dumbledore trusts Snape. Ron, give it a rest, Hermione. I know Dumbledore's brilliant and everything. Doesn't mean a really clever dark wizard couldn't fool him. Hermione, then why didn't Snape just let Quirrell kill him? Why didn't he let him die? Don't know, maybe. What do you think, Sirius?" Top of 531. "I think they both got a point. Ever since I found out Snape was teaching here, I've wondered why Dumbledore hired him. Snape's always been fascinated by the dark arts. So notice, now we get some background information about Snape. He was famous for it at school. Slimy, oily, greasy-haired kid he was." And Harry and Ron grin at each other. Why? Because this fulfills all the horrible thoughts they have about Snape. It's like Sirius is validating their opinions. Snape knew more curses when he arrived at Hogwarts at school than half the kids in 7th year. So he knew these curses when he was 11. And he hung out with a group of Slytherins who were all Death Eaters. What have we just heard? Guilt by association. Okay? And he starts naming them. Little foreshadowing. All these people are going to be named later. We're going to meet them. Okay? Talk about Karkaroff. Harry says, Karkaroff's been trying to talk to Snape about things, and Snape, keeps trying to stop him. He mentions something on Karkaroff's arm. Sirius doesn't know what that is. Okay? But he does say there's still the thing that Dumbledore trusts Snape. Top of 532. I know Dumbledore trusts where a lot of other people wouldn't, but I just can't see him letting Snape at Hogwarts if he'd ever worked for Voldemort. Okay? Nothing else there. Chapter 28, we're going to go through some stuff quickly now. Hermione starts getting, nasty mail because of the Rita Skeeter scoop. Harry, Ron, and Hermione's trying to think, how is she getting this information? 546-47. Hermione says, middle of the page on 547. She's definitely not using an invisibility cloak. Catching up with Harry and Ron in the entrance hall, pulling Harry's hand away from one of his wiggling ears so he could hear her. Moody says he didn't see her anywhere near the judge's table at the second task or anywhere near the lake. Okay, so what does that mean? If she'd been in an invisibility cloak, because we've been told Moody's eye can see through invisibility cloaks, problem later on, he didn't see her. Okay? They keep talking. Harry says, maybe she had you bugged. You, Hermione, because Rita Skeeter published information that was only available to Hermione and Victor. Ron, what, put fleas on her or something? Ron doesn't understand electronic surveillance. Okay? Hermione interrupts them. There are no electronics at Hogwarts. Okay? But it does make, we find out later, it does make her start thinking more. All right? Keep going on. Harry goes out to talk to Crumb. Why? They're out at the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Why does Crumb want to talk to Harry? It's not the other way around, by the way. It's
Because he's wanting to know about him and Hermione.
he wants to know what Harry's relationship is with Hermione, but because Victor Crumb is interested in her. That's when Harry runs into Barty Crouch, says, I've done horrible, terrible things, get Dumbledore, etc. Harry runs up to get Dumbledore, Snape stops him, Karkaroff and such. Hagrid threatens Karkaroff, okay? The Dream, page 566, if you remember, at the end of Philosopher's Stone, when Harry goes through the fire and meets Quirrell, he says, you thought it would be Snape. And he says he does kind of play the type, swooping around like an overgrown bat. Page 566. Harry tells Ron and Hermione what has happened. If Snape hadn't helped me up, we might have gotten there in time. The headmaster's busy, Potter. What's this rubbish, Potter? Why couldn't he just got out of the way? Ron, maybe he didn't want you to get there. Maybe he could have gotten down there before Dumbledore. Harry, not unless he can turn himself into a bat or something. It's another one of those little clues that Rowling throws out that suggests maybe Snape's a vampire. You know, vampires supposedly can do that, right? Harry has a dream. We're going to skip most of it. He gets a letter from Sirius. Wants to know why Harry's walking around with Victor the Pensive. So, Harry goes up to Dumbledore's office, 580, 581. And Fudge is there, Moody's there. They all leave. I want to back up for a moment to Chamber of Secrets. After Harry has started hearing these voices, must kill, you know, the heir of Slytherin, blah, blah, blah. Dumbledore invites him up to his office and asks him one question. What's the question? And what is Harry's response? Anybody know or remember? Is there anything you want to tell me, Harry? Anything at all? And Harry thinks back to what Ron told him. Ron told him, after Harry hears these voices, you know, heir of Slytherin, speak Parseltongue, and even in the wizarding world, hearing voices when there's nobody speaking them, Harry, that's... And so he tells Dumbledore, no, sir, nothing at all, right? Pensive. Everybody leaves. Harry's in Dumbledore's office. He sees Fawkes. And in this office, there's shelves and everything. And in one of the shelves, he sees this eerie glow. He goes over to it. Page 583. Shallow stone basin. He looks in it, and it's like moving silver. Not like mercury, but like a fog. Okay? He wanted to touch it to find out what it felt like. But now he's, careful there. He bends close, head inside the cabinet now. It looks like glass, the stuff in it. And now he sees, as he looks, the stuff takes shape. He's looking at the inside of a room. He gets his face closer and closer and closer. He sees an empty chair. He sees chairs on either side of the room rising up. And the room is square, but the basin is round. And he leans down to try to look to see into the corners. And when he does, he touches his nose to the tip of the surface and finds himself inside. Okay? Pensive. Pronounced the same way. This means thoughtful, meditative almost. You're thinking about something. This means pense. It's French for thoughts. Sieve. Like you're sifting from California, gold country area, or been to the gold country area. Like you're sifting for gold. You're winnowing stuff out. What is this thing? It's a magical object Rowling creates, okay, for doing what? Preserving memories and possibly experiencing them. What else would it be useful for? For university students. Okay, could be for remembering. What else? You've got a bunch of exams on 2 days, back to back. You're preparing for your first exam. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to have this, to take everything from those other classes, push it aside, so you can focus solely? Yeah, it'd be really, really nice. Okay, so here he goes into this memory, somebody's memory, we don't know whose. And what does he see? He sees Barty Crouch conducting trials. We see Karkaroff come in. We see Karkaroff give names. Telling us what about Karkaroff? True believer or snitch? Okay. We're going to see Ludo Bagman, because he mentions Bagman. We're going to hear him named Snape. And then we're going to hear Barty Crouch say, Snape has been vouched for by Dumbledore. We don't know how or why. All right. Dungeon goes dark, comes back again. We see Bagman. We see Rita Skeeter in the audience. Why does Bagman get off? I think there's 2 reasons. One is he probably is innocent. What's the bigger reason? Why do they swoon over him? Because he's a famous international Quidditch player. It should be like, just after the height of his career, Michael Jordan being brought up on federal charges for whatever. Be hard to find a jury kind of to convict. Or pick your famous athlete, Fades to black, comes back again, and we see a group of people brought in, including the young Barty Crouch. He cries out to his father, 595. Okay. We see a couple other people we're going to meet later. And then Dumbledore shows up, 596. There he is on Harry's left side. He puts his hand under Harry's elbow. Why? He's going to gently pull, lift him up out. Harry, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Dumbledore goes, it's okay, Harry. What is this thing? Dumbledore explains. He says one simply siphons the excess thoughts off, puts them aside, where you can think about them later. Okay? So, Dumbledore shows Harry how it works. He takes his wand, he puts it up to his head, and he pulls this silver stuff out. Okay? 598. He explains he was using the pensive when Fudge came in. And then he explains, sorry, Harry, I did not fasten the cabinet before I left. Harry, I'm sorry. He's sorry for what? Looking into something he shouldn't have. Dumbledore, curiosity is not a sin. But we should exercise caution with our curiosity, okay? They keep talking. Bertha Yorkins is mentioned. She was mentioned in the first chapter. And Dumbledore shows Harry Bertha Yorkins. So, Harry mentions being in divination and falling asleep. Mentions the dream. Voldemort was torturing Wormtail. He got an owl. 600. Harry finally asks Dumbledore the question he should have asked him in the second chapter. He should have written to Dumbledore, not Sirius. Do you know why my scar's bothering me? Hurting me? He says, I have a theory. Your scar hurts when Voldemort is near, when he's nearby, and when he's feeling really strong hatred. But why? He says, because you two are connected by that scar. So the dream, you think it really happened? Again, what's the important part of the dream? Harry sees Wormtail tortured. You think so? Yeah. Did you see Voldemort? Harry, no, just the back of his chair. But, I mean, what would you have seen? What would I have seen? Dumbledore says, Harry, you think he's getting stronger? Middle of 601. Harry, I don't know. Here's my, he says, suspicions. The years of Voldemort's ascent to power were marked with disappearances. Bertha Yorkins has vanished without a trace. Okay? One, let's say death. Mr. Crouch has disappeared. 2 missings. There's a third. What? That the ministry doesn't acknowledge. I don't mean doesn't acknowledge. They don't say it happened. Not that they don't say it happened. It's they don't care about it. Why? Because Frank Bryce isn't a wizard. These disappearances seem to me to be linked. Ministry disagrees. Okay? He asks another question about something I didn't mention. The trial with Crouch's son. Were they talking about Neville's parents? Because the trial was talking about what? The torturing into insanity of Frank and Alice Longbottom. Neville's never told you? Harry just shakes his head. Yes, they were talking about Neville's parents, and we find out Neville's parents were these great aurors. Harry, they're dead? Dumbledore, no, they are insane. Tells us where they are. Neville visits them, we're told, during the holidays. What are the holidays? Christmas break. It's not called winter, it's called Christmas. The Easter holidays, the summer holidays. Okay? They do not recognize him. Now, we're told here they do not recognize him. Book 5, we're going to see Neville's grandmother. I think she does recognize him. he goes on and talks about how the Longbottoms were popular. The attacks on them came after Voldemort's fall from power. In other words, the attacks on Neville's parents came after Harry defeated Voldemort as a baby. And that caused the Ministry to want to use great power to find out the perpetrators and such because of how well loved they were. Okay? So, Harry has one other question. What made you think Snape stopped being a Death Eater? That's between me and Professor Snape, Harry. Third task. What's the third task?
Getting your remains.
Get to the port key. That's it. You touch the port key, you win. Okay? So, skipping almost all of the third task, 632 and following, last couple of pages. Who gets to the cup? Who are the closest people to the cup? Harry and Cedric. Okay? Harry, who's literally the closest to the cup? Cedric. Well, is he? Cedric is standing feet from the Triwizard Cup, which was gleaming behind him. Harry can't get to it. He's bleeding, bitten by the spider and such. Tried to get up. Harry says, take it then. Go on, take it. You're there. We're not told this literally, but it's almost like feet from the cup. All Cedric has to do is reach around behind him, and he can touch it. But Cedric doesn't move. Why not? Because he's from Hufflepuff, where they're just, loyal, and true. Is it just that Cedric can take it? No, it's not. Why? Because Harry saved Cedric earlier in this task. Okay? You should win. That's twice you've saved my neck in here. Harry, it's not how it works. Take it. No. Stop being noble. Just take it. You told me about the dragons. I would have lost then, he's suggesting. Harry, I had help. You helped me with the egg. I had help on the egg too. Somebody else told them about the egg. We're still square. Harry's just thinking what? I hurt, I'm bleeding, you're there, let's get the damn thing over with so I can get some medical attention. You should have gotten more points on the second task. Harry's thinking, seriously? I was the only one who was thick enough to take that song seriously. Cedric, go on. Top of 634. Cedric, feet from the cup, steps away from the cup to Harry, who stared at him. Cedric was serious. He was walking away from the sword of glory Hufflepuff House hadn't had in centuries. What's he doing? I think this relates to the theme of the course. He's renouncing what? He's renouncing the power that would come, not literal, it's metaphorical. The power that would come with that glory, with that prestige, to help Harry. Okay? Both of us. Let's do it together. Sure? Yeah. They touch the cup and whoosh, they're taken somewhere else. 637. Do you know what's important? No. One's, yep. Notice both those times, Cedric asks the question, Harry gives the answer. Cedric's older than Harry. And he's looking to the kid, essentially, for advice. Harry's been in these kinds of situations. Does Cedric know that? Does Cedric know what happened under the Chamber of Secrets? Well, we'll find out the whole school knows because Fred and George told. Does Cedric know about the Whomping Willow and the Shrieking Shack? Nope. Know about sorry, I said Chamber of Secrets. Into book 1, he knows about it. Book 2, nope. So, they pull out their wands, and they see a figure coming, 637. The figure stops beside a towering marble headstone, only 6 feet from them. I need to keep that. Headstone. Harry, Cedric. Okay? The figure comes and stands beside this. So, another figure. And then, without warning, Harry's scar erupts in pain. He hears, "Kill the spear." He sees blast of green light. Here's Avada Kedavra. He opens his eyes, and there's Cedric. Spread-eagled. What does it mean, spread-eagled? Okay. Cedric was lying spread-eagled on the ground beside him. And then he becomes like that for illustration. The short man in the cloak had put down his bundle, page 638, lit his wand, and was dragging Harry toward the marble headstone, which is where? 6 feet away. Okay? So Harry now goes from here to here. He gets tied up here. Meanwhile, where's Cedric's body? Where it fell. Exact middle of page 639. Cedric's body was lying some 20 feet away. What? That's the kind of thing Tolkien writes about in his fairy story essay that could make the whole book go pop the fantasy, pop the secondary world creation. Idiotic error. Not, partially on Rowling's part, but definitely her editor should have caught that. Because this thing would go through multiple drafts, multiple edits, in other words. All right? So, he hears these noises at his feet. He's tied to the thing now. Harry sees this other person, okay? It's Wormtail. Bottom of 640. The thing Wormtail had been carrying had the shape of a crouched human child, except Harry had never seen anything less like a child. Hairless, scaly looking, dark, raw, reddish black, arms and legs, thin and feeble, face. No child alive had ever had a face like that. Flat and snake-like, gleaming red eyes. And Wormtail drops this thing into the cauldron. Let it drown, please let it drown. 641. Bone of the Father unknowingly given, you will renew your son. And out from the dust comes little bits, out from the grave comes little bits of dust and fall into the cauldron. Flesh of the servant willingly given, you will revive your master. Takes the knife and... Does it have to be the whole hand? Does it say hand of the servant? No, what could he do? Fingertip. Keep the hand. Oh, I thought you were going to make a comment. Okay? Blood of the enemy, forcibly taken. You will resurrect your foe. Go back to the opening chapter. What did Wormtail say to Voldemort? Go ahead. They could use any wizard. Why? Because as long as they're not Death Eaters, they're enemies. Okay? He could do nothing to prevent it. He was tied too tightly. So, Harry gets stabbed. Blood drips into the thing. Harry, please let it drown, let it drown, let it drown. And instead, what do we get? We get the resurrection of Lord Voldemort. Death Eaters. What happens? Voldemort goes up to Wormtail, pulls his sleeve back, touches what? The tattoo. But it's not a tattoo. It's a brand. Like a hot iron with this image was put on each Death Eater's arm. But it was unique to each Death Eater. Right? And when Voldemort does that, that's a signal. That tells each and every Death Eater with one of these marks, come to Papa, follow the GPS tracker. And so he starts going through those that are missing. A bunch of Death Eaters come around in a circle, and we find out there's a bunch that are in Azkaban. Some are dead. Some, 651, are missing. Here we have 6 missing Death Eaters, 3 dead in my service, 2 cowardly, 1 too cowardly to return. He will pay. Who's that? We're going to find out later. That's Karkaroff. Okay? 1 who I believe has left me forever, he'll be killed. And 1 who remains my most faithful servant. And we don't know who that is. And we don't know who the one who left my service and he will be killed, but it's implied that's whom? Go back to the trial. Snape. Okay? So, 652 and following. What does Voldemort, aka J.K. Rowling, do? If you saw The Incredibles, we get an example of it in the film The Incredibles. What's his name? Syndrome, the little fat kid who grows up to be a big fat kid, does what? He starts monologuing. You got me monologuing, you sly dog. That's what he does. Why? Because we need to understand Voldemort's thinking. Okay? He says, people said this kid was my downfall. They said he defeated me. And he comes up to Harry and touches his forehead. What does Harry think until this point? What's his protection? My mother died to save me. He can't touch me. And now he does. Okay? So we're going to skip a bunch. Talks about what happened to him when he was ripped from his body. He talks about 4 years ago, which was what? Harry's first year. Okay? Talk about Pearl dying, Chamber of Secrets. Harry defeats him then. Okay? Priori Incantatem. So, what do we see Voldemort do? He engages Harry in a duel. Harry knows how to duel, right? Who taught him? No, he doesn't know how to duel. What he knows, he learned on his own. Okay? 660. We bow to each other, Harry. Come, niceties must be observed. Dumbledore would like you to show manners. Here's that point he wants Harry to behave properly. Harry doesn't want to. And now, I said, bow. And what happens? Harry is physically forced to. Does he do it because of the Imperious Curse? No, this is a different spell. Okay? They fight, kind of. Voldemort offers a little break. And then he says to Harry, 661, Harry thinks, in response to Voldemort's question, you didn't like that, did you? You don't want me to do that again. Harry thinks he's going to die, like Cedric. Those pitiless red eyes were telling him so. He was going to die, and there was nothing he could do about it. But he wasn't going to play along. He wasn't going to obey Voldemort. He wasn't going to beg. I asked you whether you want me. Harry, just answer no. Just answer no. I won't. You won't? You won't say no? Harry, obedience is a virtue. He tries again. Harry hides. He jumps behind. What is this? Whose is this? Tom Riddle Sr.'s tombstone. He hides behind that. We're not playing hide and seek, Harry, page 662. You cannot hide from me. Does this mean you're tired? You would prefer me to finish it now? Come on, Harry, come on. It'll be painless. It'll be quick, or it'll be quick. It might even be painless. I would not know. I've never died. And Harry thinks he's not going to die crouching here like a child playing hide and seek. He was not going to die kneeling at Voldemort's feet. He was going to die upright like his father. And he was going to die trying to defend himself, even if no defense was possible. In other words, how is he going to die? Standing upright, wand in hand, metaphorically, shoulders thrown back, and he's going to march into battle, so to speak. Okay? Avada Kedavra comes from one wand, and Harry yells, Expelliarmus. What does Expelliarmus mean? To disarm. Expel, not, I would love to see Monty Python, because arms would be flying, Yeah, just a flesh wound. Expelliarmus, to disarm. We've seen Harry use that before. Harry, Ron, and Hermione use it in Prisoner of Azkaban. We're going to hear in a later book, it is Harry's signature charm. And I think there's a reason for that. There's a modern martial art begun in the early 20th century. I can never remember the name of this. Former student / friend, later on became my godson, of mine, practices it. And we were talking about this one day. And he explained, the principle of this martial art is you learn all of these techniques, and they're all for one purpose. They are to use the strength of your opponent, or to turn the strength of your opponent into a weakness. And the purpose of that is to stop your opponent from hurting him or herself. Okay? So, Expelliarmus. What is it really doing? It's stopping the other person from harming themselves, him or herself. Harming him or herself how? By doing an unjust act of violence. So you disarm someone from, let's say, firing a weapon. Why? Because once the weapon is fired, this isn't Warner Brothers. It's not Looney Tunes. It's not Bugs Bunny. The bullet will go where it is pointed to. It's to stop that. Harry attempts to do what to Voldemort? To disarm him. What happens? The two spells meet. Okay? Harry gets lifted off the ground. Voldemort gets lifted off the ground. They get moved from out of where the Death Eaters are encircling them, taken to another place, and now there's this like golden dome around them. Flickering light. Harry's wand and Voldemort's wand are still connected by this golden thread. And then Harry hears this sound, like a music, page 664. Phoenix song. What connects the two wands? Fox. They each have a tail feather of fox inside. And Harry hears a sound he connects with Dumbledore, the Phoenix song, and something tells him, don't break the connection. Don't do this. Don't yank your wand away. Okay? And what starts to happen? I know we've only got a minute left. 665. What comes out of Voldemort's wand? Wormtail's hand. The last thing the wand did. What comes out next? Cedric Diggory. Okay? 666. Hold on, Harry. The ghost of Cedric Diggory? An echo of Cedric Diggory? That's what Dumbledore's going to call it later on. What do echoes do? They merely repeat. Were Cedric's last words to Harry, hold on, Harry? No, they weren't. What is this? I think. This is the same kind of thing Harry sees when he looks in that damn mirror. That does what? Sees Harry, tears. Harry responds, smiles and waves, arm around. More screams of pain. An old man comes out. Fight him, boy. More people come out. Bertha Jorkins comes out. 667. Your father's coming. Hold on for your father. It will be all right. Hold on. Lily comes out. Harry hears her voice. Not just a memory like in Prisoner of Azkaban. Okay, we'll stop there. We'll pick up with this. I've not put up, I don't think, have I put up the quiz over the first half of Goblet? No, I'll do that today. I don't know why. I've had 100 other things to do. I'll do that today. It'll be due 2 or 3 days.